Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are some of the greatest games ever made. So where's Metal Gear Solid 6? Well, Metal Gear's future is a complicated and uncertain subject. Since 2015, most gamers thought Metal Gear was dead in the dirt after Konami and Kojima, the head director of Metal Gear, had a nasty divorce. Trashing the scapegoat Metal Gear Survive was how gamers vented their rage at Konami, something I still think was undeserved for Survive. However, Metal Gear has had an unexpected resurgence as of 2023, with a remake of Snake Eater on its way and the Master Collection Volume 1, implying several volumes, which was released recently, and some rumors of Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 remakes. It looks like Konami is trying their hand with more Metal Gear without Kojima. Also, Solid Snake is in Fortnite. I can't believe it, but he's in Fortnite with Peter Griffin now. It's also worth noting that Kojima is busy with Death Stranding 2, and that new Overdose game or something, I don't know, it's called OD. But that doesn't necessarily mean they've ruled out bringing back Kojima in the future. In fact, on Twitter, Kojima and the official Metal Gear account are following each other. Maybe they can make up in the future. Ideally they do, but once again, it's uncertain. Now, if the issue of Kojima wasn't enough, the story of Metal Gear is in an awkward position, where we really don't know where to go next. Some people have suggested games featuring other characters during other times, while others still think we can squeeze more details of Big Boss and Solid Snake into a game. I'll list off a few common examples. A game focused on the boss during World War II is a popular suggestion, a game that newbies to the series could enjoy since it would take place at the beginning of the series during the 1930s, and also a game that veterans could enjoy as a good foundation for the characters of Metal Gear Solid 3. The game could start off with the boss's childhood, setting up the Wise Men's Committee along with the boss's father's death, and a tutorial where the boss trains in the SAS with Major Zero. We could see the Cobra unit invading Normandy and making their way to Berlin, and after that we could see the boss's exploits during the Cold War before the Virtuous mission, eliminating the Sorrow, and even seeing the beginning of her relationship to Naked Snake by training him. Personally, I'm not too against the idea if it's executed correctly, but making a game extensively about the boss might need Kojima's expertise. Plus, it would probably work better as a spin-off like Rising, instead of being Metal Gear Solid 6, as some people don't even consider the boss to be a snake. Would I like to see it in the future? Sure, but not as Konami's step back into Metal Gear. Another suggestion that is floated around would be a game about Big Boss's most trusted lieutenant. Well, besides Venom Snake at least. In my opinion, we see most of Gray Fox's backstory in Portable Ops, which is probably canon, so there's not much room to go anywhere besides making a game where he fights in random wars and kills Naomi's parents during the Cold War, since we see no mentions of him in Peace Walker or Phantom Pain. I think Gray Fox should be left alone, and him reconnecting with Big Boss and Foxhound would serve better in a flashback or a mission for Metal Gear Solid 6, rather than a standalone game. A game about Solid Snake between Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 4 was a suggestion I've seen floated around in the past, which hasn't been too popular recently, and I can definitely see why. After Big Shell, there's not much Snake can do besides what's shown in the Tanker incident, which is taking pictures of other countries and their Metal Gears, and maybe destroying some of them. Sure, he can rescue Sonny and get old, but what else is there? Plus, we already have a game like that called Metal Gear Solid Mobile, which may or may not be coming to one of the Master Collections anyway. If Snake committed to large missions for philanthropy after Metal Gear Solid 2, it would probably be mentioned in Metal Gear Solid 4. The absence of said missions would be an annoying retcon to the rest of the series. Speaking of Metal Gear Solid 4, some people want a Rat Patrol or Meryl game. This one could get kind of creative and might redeem Johnny in the eyes of most fans if they make it right, since they could go absolutely anywhere with this one. After Metal Gear Solid 1, all that's known about Meryl is she rejoined the army and Campbell told her he was his father. We don't even know how the Rat Patrol got together and what missions they undertook. Plus, they could develop the characters of Ed and Jonathan as well. This game would be a wild card, something I feel is too unsafe to pull off as Metal Gear Solid 6, including the fact that Meryl isn't a snake. Another Metal Gear game could star Raiden again and be Metal Gear Rising 2, which once again could literally go in any direction since it's not constricted to the Metal Gear timeline. If Metal Gear Rising 2 was going to happen, I think it would be really funny if another Snake clone, let's call him Purple Snake, was revealed that was created by Naomi, finding a way to bypass the Terminator genes after Shadow Moses or during the Guns of the Patriots incident, and that underwent VR missions which simulated Snake's revenge to make him officially part of canon. The game would revolve around Raiden mentoring Purple Snake to finally take down what remains of the war economy created by the Patriots, or something, which could be an entire reversal to Metal Gear Solid 2. This could also be a co-op game, with one player controlling Snake and another controlling Raiden. They would need totally crazy bosses, as one-upping Armstrong and Sam would be pretty difficult. My idea is completely outlandish, and some people definitely wouldn't like another Snake, but I think it would be awesome. Speaking of spin-offs, another spin-off like Snake's Revenge or Ghost Babel or Survive set in a non-canonical timeline would be interesting, but most people aren't looking for that, especially with the true ending of Metal Gear Solid 5 setting up the MSX games. And before I talk about the elephant in the room, we should seriously get a game about Iroquois Pliskin. What happened to that guy? He just disappeared out of nowhere and Solid Snake just kinda showed up. Okay, jokes aside, there has been fan demand for a remake of Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake before Metal Gear Solid 4 came out in 2008. Obviously, this is the one most people are waiting for, and frankly, I'm waiting for it too. The events in the game are extremely crucial to the timeline and serve as the bridge between Big Boss and Solid Snake. I've played both original games, and they're just so dated and crappy. Some fans of the series don't even know what happened in those games, since they're so old, and there's no desire to go back and play them. Some people may say that Metal Gear Solid 5 was the bridge in the timeline as it covers details between Peace Walker and Metal Gear 1, but hilariously or sadly, that game from 2015 is still unfinished. Ideally, Chapter 51, Kingdom of the Flies for Metal Gear Solid 5 will eventually be released as free content or DLC, or even with Volume 2. But if they can't be bothered to do that, then it could be lamely included in Metal Gear Solid 6 as the first mission. Chapter 51 clears up a lot of the plot holes and is pretty much necessary to understanding the ending for Metal Gear Solid 5. Also, in my opinion, the true ending of Metal Gear Solid 5 is actually a cliffhanger rather than a conclusion to the MSX games and the series as a whole. The rest of this video will be about the main topic, my pitch for a Metal Gear 1 and 2 remake. Yes, both of them in one game. In my opinion, with how big Metal Gear Solid 4 and 5 were, remaking both MSX games individually would just not be enough to suffice. We can call it Metal Gear Solid 6 Outer Heaven Uprising, although others have suggested calling it Metal Gear Solid 0, with 0 also being an O for Outer Heaven, taking on a clever double meaning where the 0 is actually an O, referencing the fake Big Boss, as well as this game preceding Metal Gear Solid 1 canonically. Now obviously I'm not going to go over every detail in each MSX game and translate it to a modern Metal Gear adaptation, but I will go through some interesting ideas that I've had, and hopefully you can visualize just what I'm going on about. Does this mean Konami will contact me and will specifically go with all of my ideas? Hopefully they do, because my ideas are awesome, but probably not. So I actually think we should get a tutorial level where you play as Gray Fox going through training under the re-established Foxhound US Army base. In this tutorial we have the opportunity to see Big Boss and Master Miller teaching the recruits of Foxhound, including Gray Fox and Solid Snake, advanced survival skills, solo infiltration, CQC, etc. Think similar to PUBG's training course or something like that, featuring shooting drills and obstacle courses. Foxhound's exams on the Metal Gear Wiki are super hardcore, and maybe we could play through some of those courses as well. Throughout the tutorial, we would see competition between Solid Snake and Gray Fox, as apparently they were rivals during training. Having a physical sparring test would be an opportunity to see a revamped CQC system, such as a lock-on mechanic and different moves to execute based on keys pressed, similar to Grand Theft Auto 4 but smoother and modern. Snake can perform his high roundhouse kick, or the Metal Gear Solid 2 spinning kick, or a low kick, depending on which button was pressed. While other Foxhound soldiers watch on, Gray Fox defeats Solid Snake in the CQC training exercise, which would also be great foreshadowing. Solid Snake should also be a bit more cheery throughout this game, not PTSD-induced like Metal Gear Solid 1 or too tonally serious like Metal Gear Solid 2. Snake should be able to crack a few jokes and be more upbeat, since he's in his early 20s and hasn't really had anything major happen to him yet. At the end of this mission, Miller could give Snake the bandana here, which Venom recovered during Metal Gear Solid 5. This doesn't really need to happen, since a bandana is just standard Foxhound equipment, but confirming that Solid Snake's bandana officially belonged to the boss and was worn by Big Boss would be amazing, in my opinion. Lastly, Big Boss could tell this group of Foxhound graduates to never give up or lose hope, word for word from Metal Gear 2, another example of foreshadowing. First, you play as Gray Fox as he parachutes in and infiltrates through the jungle to get to Outer Heaven, like the NES version of Metal Gear 1. When Gray Fox gets into Outer Heaven by hiding in the back of a truck, he infiltrates the building and gets to the roof under Big Boss's orders. He comes across Twin Shot, a boss exclusive to the NES version of Metal Gear. After defeating them, Gray Fox gets a keycard that opens Madnar's prison cell. After the battle, you sneak around for a bit until you find Dr. Madnar. While in conversation about Metal Gear's whereabouts, Gray Fox and Madnar are ambushed by Outer Heaven soldiers, but as Fox is captured, Big Boss has a weird transmission saying that everything will be alright. The screen fades to black as Gray Fox is thrown in prison, and you hear the classic theme of Tara jingle as your POV switches to Solid Snake, who swims in like the opening of the MSX game. There is this one guy on the internet who made very awesome and cool concept art, even the idea to bring back the camo system, but I think adding a hand-to-hand battle for the Venom Snake fight would be redundant. First of all, the keycard system has got to go. It sucks and is one of the worst parts of the original. Make the cards stack and the activation automatic. It's that simple. And the difference between Venom Snake in Metal Gear Solid 5 and Solid Snake's gameplay is that Solid Snake is a little bit faster and he has an army dodge roll instead of jumping on his chest like Venom. For the Shotmaker, he should employ different types of shotgun shells like explosive rounds and Dragon's Breath rounds while using a grenade launcher with shotgun rounds. And instead of fighting him immediately after breaking out of prison, Snake should be forced to escape through a sewer while being chased by Shotmaker and then finding his equipment scattered around the sewer, instead of just making it to a door that conveniently has all of his guns. An issue I see with the Machine Gun Kid and the Fire Trooper is that they overlap Vulcan Raven and the Fury, respectively, in boss battle design. Not sure how to change these to make them feel unique, so I'll leave it up to Konami. And the Bloody Brads could follow you around the entirety of Building 2, similar to the two Mr. X's from Resident Evil, until you get the heavy rocket launcher to defeat them. For the Metal Gear TX-55 itself, first Snake has to destroy the supercomputer from the NES, which is evolved from the iDroid technology in Metal Gear Solid 5. After blowing it up, it makes the Metal Gear TX-55 enter an uncontrollable frenzy. After Solid Snake destroys the supercomputer, it is revealed that Big Boss has went missing and was last seen on a private helicopter taking off to the east. Colonel Campbell assesses control of the situation. The Metal Gear TX-55 battle would be a lot more interesting if it was active while you battle, just gonna say that. Lastly, Venom Snake should start the battle looking like this, and then unmasked for Phase 2. It could be a very fast-paced gunfight battle, comparable to a modern version of the Metal Gear Solid 1 Revolver Ocelot battle, but with more cover. Playing this mission on the second playthrough should show an official version of the Last Day in Outer Heaven, to give a proper send-off of Venom Snake. Now, Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake is already quite solid to pull a remake out of, but there are a few things I would like to see revamped or changed. First of all, it shouldn't be so obvious that Big Boss is in charge of Zanzibar Land. The game should make it look like Gray Fox is leading the rebellion, kinda like what this Reddit guy said. Gustava, as a character, also seems quite rushed. Maybe she should be merged with Holly to seem more important before Gray Fox bombs them badly on a bridge. The swamp area can be reminiscent of Metal Gear Solid 3, and that invisible bridge puzzle is stupid. Just get it out of here. Just imagine, this is what chasing the Green Beret would look like. Just brilliant, just brilliant. I would prefer to retcon some of the bosses' names in this game. For example, Running Man. Oh no, I'm so scared of Running Man. No, his new name should be Toxic Jackal, as he runs around an area full of gas. Likewise, Night Fright should adopt his other alias of the Phantom Assassin. It just seems more intimidating, okay? Dr. Madnar himself shouldn't be able to put Snake in a chokehold, that's just stupid. It should instead be a quick-time event where Snake has to non-lethally take down Madnar, who has already drawn a gun on Snake. Also, the owl hatching from the egg thing, that was dumb. It should just unexist. Up until now, Kiefer Sutherland should voice Big Boss and Venom. But now the VA should be Richard Doyle, to reflect the older Big Boss and the ending of Metal Gear Solid 4. It would be so awesome to make Big Boss wield the Patriot in his battle against Solid Snake. Finally, the post-credit scene would be Liquid killing Miller before Metal Gear Solid 1 under orders from Revolver Ocelot. If everything goes well, this would potentially be the best Metal Gear game in the franchise. It's true! Alternatively, if the Metal Gear MSX remakes look like this with modern cutscenes, I would probably be fine with it, as long as it's $50 or less.